Hello, this is my quantitative analysis project and discussion. The article that I have chosen was the validity of the Fitbit activity tracker for measuring steps in community dwelling older adults. People say that wearing a Fitbit may encourage and improve our physical activity, but the accuracy of the Fitbit in older adults still remains undiscovered. This study aims to determine the criterion validity of Fitbit step counts compared to visual count and anti-grav accelerometer step counts. There were 32 participants over the age of 60 years old that lived at home and were weekly users of technology and left the house regularly. Uh, the purpose of the study was to evaluate the validity of the Fitbit activity trackers for measuring step counts in community dwelling older adults. The researchers aimed to determine how well Fitbit step counts align with the manual step counting and anti-grav accelerometers, a commonly used research grade device for measuring physical activity. The 2-minute walk test were where the participants would walk at their usual pace for 2 minutes. And then their step counts were recorded by a Fitbit activity tracker that was worn on the wrist, a research grade anti-grav accelerometer worn at the waist, and a physiotherapist who manually counted the steps. For the 7-day free living step monitoring, participants wore both the Fitbit and the anti-grav devices for 1 week during their daily activities such as chores around the house. And then the step counts from the two devices were compared over the 7-day period. The ICCs were used to assess agreement between Fitbit and anti-grav and also the manual step counts. The mean differences were calculated to evaluate whether Fitbit estimated or underestimated steps compared to the reference standards. The study ultimately found that the Fitbit trackers provided accurate step measurements during the 2-minute walk test and had high agreement with the anti-grav over the 7-day period, though Fitbit slightly overestimated daily step counts. In this study, validity was a primary focus. Um, Validity was accessed by comparing step counts from the Fitbit activity tracker to the ref to two reference standards: manually counted steps by a physiotherapist and step counts from a research grade anti-grav accelerometer. During the 2-minute walk test, the Fitbit showed excellent excellent agreement with manual counts and had good agreement with the anti-grav, supporting its concurrent validity. In the 7-day period, monitoring period, Fitbit step counts were again compared to the anti-grav, showing excellent agreeablement, my bad. Although the Fitbit slightly overestimated daily steps by an average of 716.7 more steps than the anti-grav. Reliability, which refers to the consistency of measurements over time or across trials, was not directly assessed in this study. The researchers did not include repeated trials or retest procedures to examine whether the Fitbit produced stable results under the same conditions. Therefore, while the study provides strong evidence in the Fitbit's validity for measuring steps in older adults, it does not provide data on the device's reliability. The variable step counts during the 2-day period were measured by three methods: the Fitbit activity tracker worn on the non-dominant wrist, and then the anti-grav accelerometer worn on the waist, and then the manual step counts that were conducted by a trained physical therapist using a hand tally counter. For the daily step count during the 7-day monitoring, participants wore both devices during walking steps for 7 consecutive days. The Fitbit continued to track steps on the wrist, and the anti-grav continues step counts on the waist. At the end of the 7 days, average daily step counts from both devices were extracted and compared. There were three measurement techniques that were used for this study. The first one was a Fitbit, which was a commercial wrist-worn activity tracker that measured that estimated the steps, and then the data were extracted through the Fitbit platform for analysis. The second one was the anti-graft accelerometer, a validated research grade trial accelerometer that was worn on the waist. It uses open source algorithms for estimating step counts and is often considered a reliable standard in physical activity research. And then last was the manual counting, which was done by a physiotherapist that would visually observe and counted each step using a mechanical tally counter. The authors concluded that the Fitbit is a valid tool for measuring step counts in community dwelling older adults. They highlighted that the device performs well in both controlled testing and in real-world everyday activity settings. They acknowledged the slight overestimation of steps by the Fitbit, but considered it minor and acceptable for general use. The authors interpreted the findings as supportive of using Fitbit devices for monitoring physical activity in older adults, especially for promoting and tracking walking behavior in community and clinical settings. Overall, they emphasize that Fitbits can offer a practical, low cost, and accessible alternative to more complex research grade tools, particularly for older populations living independently. These the study's findings support the use of the Fitbit activity trackers as valid tools for monitoring physical activities, specifically step counts in community dwelling older adults. This is valuable for healthcare professionals such as physiotherapists, yes, who aim to promote a physical activity and track progress in older adults. These results suggest that Fitbit devices can be used to encourage regular walking through real-time feedback, monitor step-based goals in clinical or home-based rehabilitation programs, support remote monitoring, reducing the for in-person visits while still maintaining oversight of a patient's activity levels. Implications for personal practice. I feel that, not that I feel, but if they needed larger and more diverse samples, future studies should include individuals who with varying levels of mobility, including those who use walking aids or have chronic health conditions, or also too if they had like a surgery or any stuff like that along the lines. Second would be the reliability assessment. Research should evaluate the test, retest reliability of Fitbit devices over time to ensure consistently in measurements. And then last would be the long-term impact on behavioral health. They should investigate whether regular feedback from activity trackers leads to sustained increase in physical activity or improved health outcome in older adults. And that is it. Thank you.